At my son's parent-teacher conference, my ex-husband's new wife shook my hand and called herself his real partner. I smiled and said thanks for reminding me. Today, my lawyer called. The custody agreement is now mine alone. I guess his new partner can help him move his things out. If someone humiliated you in front of everyone you trusted, would you keep quiet and let it pass, or would you make sure they understood what they'd done? My name is Laura. I'm 39. I've been living alone for almost 2 years now in the same 2-bedroom apartment I moved into after Mark, and I split. It's a quiet building. Sometimes it feels too quiet, especially after Jacob's gone to bed and I'm standing at the sink, listening to the hum of the fridge. I keep the second bedroom set up for Jacob, his Lego bins, his Spider-Man bedding, the stacks of library books we go through together. He's 7. He's the reason Mark and I still see each other at all. Otherwise, I doubt we'd have more than a reason to text. Mark and I divorced in the fall. He met Amanda at some work function and married her before our first Christmas apart. He's the type who likes to have someone around. He says he's not good at empty rooms. I'm the opposite. I can go days without another adult in the apartment and not feel it until Sunday night hits. Mark keeps busy. Amanda is always around now, at school pickup, at Jacob's games, even at the pediatrician. At first, I tried to be grateful that she was kind to Jacob. It seemed better than the stories I'd heard from other single moms. Looking back, the signs were there. Mark started sending texts that felt vague. He'd say, "There might be complications with this weekend," or "Amanda can grab Jacob if you're busy." When I asked for details, the answers got slower, more careful. Amanda started showing up alone at school, sometimes not even telling me she was taking Jacob until after the fact. When I brought it up, Mark brushed it off as just easier for everyone. I told myself it was just the messiness of co-parenting. Now I know it was something else. Last Thursday was the annual school conference. Dee agreed to meet there, all 3 of us, for Jacob's teacher update. Sitting in that little room, I realized how much had shifted. In the moment, I didn't let it show. But it was the first time I understood. This was never about what was best for Jacob. It was about who got to decide. The first thing I saw was Amanda's coat, draped over the back of Mark's chair. She was sitting right next to him, elbows almost brushing. They both looked up as I stepped into the conference room, but only Amanda stood. She smiled like we'd met before, though we hadn't. Her hair was pulled back tight, not a strand out of place. Mark's hands were folded on the table, fingers tapping quietly. Amanda held her hand out, but didn't wait for me to shake it. "Amanda," she said. "Mark's real partner." She raised her eyebrows at the teacher, who blinked fast and shuffled some papers. Mark didn't say anything, just cleared his throat and looked at the floor. The teacher started talking about Jacob's reading, her voice a little too cheerful. She slid a manila folder across the table. I saw the label, Jacob Miller Parents, Mark Miller, Lori Miller. My name was spelled wrong, as usual. Amanda picked up the folder before I could reach it. She thumbed through the pages, paused at the progress report, and then laughed. "I'll keep this safe for Mark," she said. She set the folder in front of her and pushed it a little closer to Mark, like I wasn't even there. The teacher looked at me, then at Amanda. She smiled, but her eyes darted to the clock on the wall. I could tell she didn't want to get in the middle of anything. Mark still hadn't looked at me. He picked at a piece of lint on his pants and asked if Jacob was still having trouble with his spelling tests. Amanda leaned forward, nodding along. She said Jacob just needed more structure at home, maybe a routine that both parents could stick to. She glanced at me when she said both, but she was already turning back to the teacher, like she was the expert. I reached for Jacob's drawings on the table. There were 3 of them, one of a dog, one of a house, and one of a stick figure family. Amanda's red nails brushed mine as I picked them up. "Careful," she said. "Wouldn't want to lose those." "Thanks for the reminder," I said. I slid the drawings into my bag. The teacher started listing off suggestions for reading practice. She handed Amanda a worksheet, then paused and looked at me, like she wasn't sure if she should give me one too. Amanda took both and said she'd make copies for Mark. She didn't mention my name. Mark checked his phone. I waited for him to say something, but he just nodded when Amanda talked, eyes glued to the screen. The whole time, Amanda kept one hand on the folder. She never let it go, even when the teacher tried to point out a note inside. Amanda held it up and thanked the teacher for her time, already halfway to the door. Mark stood to follow her, not looking at me. I stood too, holding Jacob's drawings against my chest. Amanda turned back at the door, smiled again, and said she'd keep me updated about anything important. The teacher mumbled that she'd see us next quarter. Mark walked out behind Amanda without a word. The room felt colder after they left. I put the worksheet in my bag, even though I knew Amanda already had it. The teacher started tidying up the table, not meeting my eyes. I thanked her and left, carrying Jacob's drawings and the reminder of where I stood. I stood by our old Honda, keys in one hand and Jacob's coat in the other. The conference center emptied out behind me. Parents drifted to their cars, kids bouncing ahead of them, everyone making plans for ice cream or dinner. I watched them without seeing details. My feet hurt. My jaw ached from holding it closed. Mark came out of the main doors with Amanda. He didn't look at me at first. He just said something to her, quick and low, then let go of her hand. She hung back near the curb, scrolling through her phone. He walked over. He stopped a few feet away. He wouldn't meet my eye. "Don't make things weird for Jacob," he said, voice low. I kept quiet. He shifted his weight, glanced up at me, then away. He said it again, like a warning. "Don't make it weird." He sounded tired. I asked, "Are you picking Jacob up this weekend?" I kept my eyes on his face. He shrugged, like he hadn't thought about it much. "Amanda's part of his family too now," he said. "Maybe you should get used to it." He said it like I was being difficult, like I was the one making things hard. I stared at him. I could feel my hands tightening around Jacob's coat, the zipper digging into my palm. The cold from the metal seeped into my skin. I told him, "Just make sure you follow the custody agreement." He looked away again, mouth flattening. Neither of us raised our voices. I could hear a car alarm in the distance, someone laughing, the scrape of Amanda's shoes on the pavement. Amanda called across the parking lot. "Ready, babe." She sounded cheerful, like she was picking him up from work. Mark turned to her and nodded, then looked back at me for half a second. He didn't say anything else. He just walked away. I watched them go. Amanda unlocked her car. She smiled at Mark, then at me, a little wave like we were old friends. She got in on the driver's side. He slid into the passenger seat. Their car pulled out, turning too quickly, the engine louder than it needed to be. I stood there, coat in my hands, watching until they were out of sight. My hands were shaking, but I didn't drop the coat. The sky was gray. The wind picked up, blowing hair into my face. I didn't move for a while. I could still hear Amanda's voice echoing in my head. "Ready, babe." She said it like she belonged, like she'd always been there. I walked around to the driver's side. The car was colder than I expected. I put Jacob's coat on the seat next to me and sat there, staring through the windshield. The steering wheel felt slick under my hands. I could see my reflection in the rearview mirror, eyes too wide, lips pressed together. I didn't cry. I just sat very still, listening to the engine tick. I thought about what Mark said. Maybe you should get used to it. Like I was the one who needed to adjust. Like Amanda had a right to be there, collecting my son, standing next to my husband. It didn't matter that we were still married on paper. It didn't matter that I was the one who made Jacob's lunches, signed his permission slips, remembered which shoes still fit him. None of that seemed to count anymore. I turned the key in the ignition. The car hesitated before starting. I gripped the wheel with both hands, knuckles white. I checked the back seat, Jacob's backpack, his science project, the book he liked to read on the way home. I ran my thumb along the zipper of his coat, the one with his name sewn inside. I pulled out of the lot, watching the side mirrors, half expecting to see Mark's car again. But they were gone. The road was empty except for me. I drove home in silence, the coat still on the seat beside me, my hands steady now but cold. I was sitting at my kitchen table, laptop open, half listening to the dishwasher run. I'd made myself a cup of tea, but by the time I remembered it, the steam was long gone. The apartment was quiet. Jacob was already asleep, his backpack by the door for the morning. I was going through the usual emails from school, field trip forms, the weekly lunch menu, reminders about the library's overdue books. I clicked through each one, marking them unread, so I'd remember to pack his gym shoes. Then I noticed a forwarded thread from the school's office. The subject line was a familiar one, next week's custody schedule. I opened it, expecting the usual reminders. But the first thing I saw was the line, primary guardian contact updated as per request, Amanda Reynolds. My email was gone. Instead, Amanda's was listed under parent contact. There was a note at the bottom. If you believe this is an error, please contact the office. I stared at the screen for a while. I didn't move. I scrolled up and down the message, looking for some explanation, maybe a copied line from Mark. There was nothing. Just the update, done 2 days ago, and a digital paper trail showing Amanda's name in the parent portal. I tried to remember if Mark had said anything about this. He hadn't. The last time we talked, it was about Jacob's cough and whether he should skip soccer. Dee never mentioned changing anything at the school. I called the school office. It rang 4 times before someone picked up. The secretary sounded tired. Hi, this is Laura Dunn. My son is Jacob Dunn, 2nd grade. I got an email saying the parent contact has changed. She tapped at her keyboard. Let me check. Yes, it looks like the primary guardian was updated this week. Amanda Reynolds is now listed as stepmother and legal guardian. The request was submitted by Mark Dunn. I sat back. Legal guardian. I'm his mother. No one called me about this. I'm sorry, she said. We received the paperwork from Mr. Dunn. If you have concerns, you might want to speak with him directly. Or you can come in with documentation to request a review. Thank you, I said. I was careful to keep my voice even. I hung up. I stared at the wall for a few minutes. I could hear the dishwasher's last cycle, the hum echoing through the apartment. I opened my phone and scrolled through old texts from Mark. Nothing about this. Just quick updates about drop-off times, forgotten homework, a photo of Jacob with his new bike. Amanda had never messaged me directly. I opened my laptop again and logged into the school's parent portal. My access was limited now. I could see Jacob's grades, but the notification settings were grayed out. Amanda's email was listed next to primary contact. Mine was a secondary, with a note saying, notified for emergencies only. I texted Mark, did you change something with the school? My email isn't primary anymore. No reply. I waited, phone in hand, until the screen went dark. I thought about Amanda filling out the forms. I pictured her handwriting, neat and careful, writing legal guardian in that blank space. I wondered if she'd hesitated, or if she'd done it quickly, as if it was her right. I didn't call Mark. I didn't want to hear whatever excuse he'd come up with. I knew this wasn't a simple mistake. He'd made Amanda the school's main contact. She'd get the first call if Jacob was sick or hurt. She'd be the one the teachers spoke to if there was a problem. I'd be copied, maybe, if someone remembered. There was a knot in my stomach, not quite anger, not quite fear. I sat in the dark for a long time, listening to the apartment settle around me. Something had changed. This wasn't about schedules or pickup times anymore. I could see it now. I wasn't just being pushed aside, I was being replaced. I closed my laptop and went to check on Jacob. He was asleep, breathing slow, blanket tangled around his legs. I stood in the doorway for a minute, watching him. I didn't touch him. I didn't want to wake him up. I just watched and waited for the feeling to pass. The next morning, I sat across from MS. Chen's desk, a stack of papers in my lap. Her office was small, the windows half fogged from the early rain. She didn't offer me coffee. She reached for the email I'd printed, then the school letter. She read in silence, her mouth pressed tight. She tapped the school notification. "Did you authorize this?" "No." She looked at me for a beat, then back to the paperwork. She asked, "Did you sign anything with the school, or tell them he could pick up Sam without your consent?" I shook my head. I kept my hands folded in my lap. She nodded, almost to herself, and pulled out the custody agreement from a slim folder. She found the section she wanted and turned it so I could see. Here, both parents must be notified about all school matters, including pickup changes. She traced the line with her pen. "This is standard in shared custody," she said. She asked if Mark had ever tried something like this before. I said not directly. She didn't write that down, but set the pen aside. I could hear cars moving through puddles in the street below. She started typing a letter on her computer. It was methodical, each word precise. She dictated as she wrote, "To whom it may concern regarding unauthorized change to school pickup protocol, immediate reversal required, all communication per custody agreement." She included the principal's name and Mark S., copying me on the draft. Then she printed the letter, signed it, and slid a copy across the desk. "Give this to the school office," she said. "I'll send one to Mark's lawyer." I took the letter. She told me to keep every document, emails, school notes, texts, anything. She said, "This isn't routine. If you get a phone call about Sam, write down the time and what was said." She looked at me, careful. "Sometimes these things go quietly." I nodded. She asked if I felt safe. I said yes. She didn't push. As I left, she reminded me, "If you see anything else odd, let me know right away." I told her I would. The copy paper in my bag felt heavier than it should. In the hallway, I paused and read the letter she'd given me. It was clear. Formal. Not angry. I folded it once and put it away. The rain had let up, but the sky was still gray. I stood outside for a minute, keys in my hand, watching the traffic. I thought about Sam's backpack waiting in the school office, and whether Mark had even told him about the change. I wondered if the secretary would look at me differently when I handed her the letter. Driving home, I kept replaying MS. Chen's voice, "This isn't standard." The phrase stuck with me, sharper than anything Mark had said. I realized I hadn't eaten breakfast. My phone buzzed with a text from my mother asking if I'd heard from Sam's teacher. I didn't answer. When I got home, I put the letter on the counter with the rest of the files and started a new folder just for school documents. I wrote down the date and time of the meeting. What MS? Chen had said, and stapled the school email to the front page. I kept the folder in the bottom drawer of my desk, behind the old tax returns. I sat for a while, listening to the house settle, and wondered if Mark was already calling the school to argue his side. I didn't call him. I didn't call anyone. I just waited for the next document to arrive. The office smelled like pencil shavings and stale coffee. I stood at the counter, hands flat, waiting for the receptionist to look up from her monitor. She was the same woman who'd handed out the school calendars a few months ago, always with a forced smile. She finished typing, then looked at me. "Hi," I said. "I need a copy of Jacob Reynolds's file. I'm his mother." She hesitated, glancing at the screen, then back at me. I could see her trying to figure out if she'd seen me before, if she should ask for ID. I slid my driver's license across the counter, without a word. She took it, checked something on her computer, then said, "One moment, please." Her voice was quiet. I could hear a printer, humming behind the half-closed door. She left me waiting longer than she needed to. I looked at the posters on the wall. Anti-bullying, lunch program, a faded flyer about a lost cat. She returned with a manila folder. There was a sticky note on top, Jacob Reynolds, 3rd grade. She set it down between us. "Is there anything specific you're looking for?" she asked. I shook my head. "Just the whole file, if that's okay." She slid it over. I opened it right there. Attendance records, report cards, a copy of his birth certificate. Then a new form, recent, filled out in blue pen. I recognized Amanda's, loopy handwriting right away. Guardian, Amanda Reynolds' stepmother. Underneath, Mark's signature. It looked rushed, like he'd signed it while standing up. I took out my phone and snapped a clear photo of the page. My hand felt steady. I tried not to think about what this meant, not in front of the receptionist. She watched me, eyes flicking from my phone to the file. I closed the folder and handed it back. "Thank you," I said. She took it, nodding, then glanced over my shoulder. The glass doors behind me opened. I heard Amanda's voice before I saw her. "Hi, sorry, I'm a little early," she said. She breezed in, hair pulled back, perfect makeup for a school afternoon. I turned. She spotted me, smiled like someone who's practiced. "Just wanted to make sure everything's in order for Jacob," she said to the receptionist, but her eyes stayed on me. "So do I said. The receptionist looked down, then up again. Amanda stood a little closer. Her nails tapped the counter. I could hear kids laughing out in the hall. Amanda looked at my hands, then at the file on the counter, now half closed. She didn't reach for it. She just smiled wider. "You know how these forms are," she said. "Always something new to fill out." I nodded. "I do." A pause hung in the air. The receptionist shifted papers on the desk, pretending not to listen. I waited. Amanda waited. She took a breath, like she was about to say something else, but just let it out. The door squeaked again in the hallway. Someone called a name. "Well, I should go check on Jacob," Amanda said, turning away. Her voice was too bright, like she was performing for the woman behind the counter. She didn't look back at me. I watched her walk down the hall, heels clicking. The receptionist avoided my eyes. I slipped my phone into my bag and left the office without another word. Outside, the sun was too bright. I stood on the sidewalk for a minute, keys in my hand, before I could move again. It was almost midnight when I laid everything out on the kitchen table. The house was quiet. Jacob was asleep. I could hear the refrigerator humming and the clock ticking above the stove. I stacked each piece of paper into neat piles. The printed emails from Amanda, the school field trip form she'd signed without telling me, the old custody agreement. I kept touching the edges of the papers, lining them up, then shifting them again. The overhead light was too bright, but I didn't turn it off. I picked up my phone and scrolled to MS. Chen's number. I hesitated, looking at the time. I left her a message anyway. I spoke quietly, almost whispering. "Hi, it's Sarah. I need some advice. Amanda's been making decisions about Jacob behind my back. I think Mark's helping her. They signed a school form for him last week. I found out by accident. Please call me." I put the phone down and stared at the emails. Amanda's tone was always clipped, polite but sharp. She never used my name. She would write things like, "Jacob's field trip is Friday. I have already arranged for him to go." Or, "Mark will pick Jacob up from practice this week." No question marks. No room for me to reply. I pulled up my laptop and opened a blank spreadsheet. I typed the date, the time, and a short note for each thing I remembered. March 2nd, Amanda picks up Jacob from school after texting Mark, not me. March 10th, Amanda signs field trip form. School never contacts me. March 13th, Mark tells me drop-off has changed, doesn't say why. I scrolled back through my texts. There were more than I thought. Some were small, easy to miss. But they were adding up. My phone buzzed. MS. Chen had texted back. "Can't talk now. Document everything. Keep a detailed journal. Save all emails and texts. Forward anything suspicious. We'll discuss next steps tomorrow." I typed her instructions into the top row of the spreadsheet. Document everything. Keep a journal. Save emails. Forward suspicious messages. I copied every email Amanda had sent me this month into a folder on my desktop. I set up a new folder for screenshots. I made a list of things to check in the morning. Call the school, ask for copies of any forms, double-check the custody agreement. I found the agreement in my filing cabinet, under legal. I read through it again, slowly. Every big decision about Jacob had to be made together. That was in writing. I sat at the table, staring at the rows in the spreadsheet. My name looked small on the custody agreement. I remembered signing it in a lawyer's office, Mark sitting next to me, nodding along. He had agreed to all of it. No one had forced him. I heard a car door slam outside. I sat up straight, but it was just the neighbor coming home. I looked around the kitchen. The counter was still sticky from dinner. Jacob's backpack was by the door, one strap half inside out. I stood up and put the papers back in order. I put the custody agreement on top. I wrote tomorrow's date in my journal and underlined it. I sat down again and opened a new tab. I searched parental alienation signs, how to document co-parenting violations, legal advice for custody interference. The articles all said the same thing: document, document, document. Stay calm. Don't confront unless you have proof. I closed the laptop and rubbed my temples. I thought about Jacob, about the way he had looked at me that afternoon when he said Amanda told him I was busy, so she would handle things. He hadn't sounded angry, just tired. I felt something heavy in my chest, but I pushed it down. I picked up my pen and wrote at the top of the page, "I will not let them erase me." I wrote it again, smaller. I looked at it for a while. Then I turned out the kitchen light and stood in the hallway, listening to Jacob's soft breathing from his room. I decided I would push back. Not to win. Just so Jacob would know I hadn't given up. I heard Mark's car before I saw it. The driveway gravel makes a sound you can't miss from the kitchen. Jacob was already at the front window. He always waited for Saturdays. He used to bounce on his toes, but lately he just stood there, holding the curtain, silent. That morning he tugged on my sleeve. "They're here," he said, voice small. Amanda got out first. She wore pressed jeans and a white sweater, sunglasses even though it was cloudy. Mark followed, carrying a paper coffee cup, not looking up. I opened the door before they rang the bell. Jacob darted out, but then stopped, looking up at me. His hand found mine, tighter than usual. Amanda crouched down to his height on the porch. "Morning, Jacob," she said, all bright. "Guess what? Soon you might be living with us more. Because I'm your real mom now." Her voice was sweet, loud enough for me to hear. Jacob looked at me, confused. His mouth twitched. He said, "Mom, Amanda says I might live with them more because she's my real mom now." He said it like a question he didn't want answered. I stared at Amanda. She straightened, smoothing her hair back, then looked at Mark. He finally looked at me, but only for a second. I said, "What is this? What are you telling him?" My voice came out flat. Amanda didn't wait for Mark. She stepped forward, close. "We think it would be best for Jacob to have a stable, two-parent household," she said. She smiled, practiced. "He needs structure." She put her hand on Mark's arm. Mark nodded, eyes fixed on the doorframe. "We're petitioning for full custody," he said. He coughed, like the words stuck. Jacob pressed against my leg. I could feel his heart pounding. I looked at Amanda, then Mark, then back to Amanda. Nobody moved. I said nothing. I closed the door, slow, making sure Jacob was behind me. I locked it, then slid down, pulling Jacob into my lap. Through the door, Amanda's voice, muffled, sharp. Mark saying something low. Their footsteps on the porch. Jacob started to cry, not loud, just shaking. I held him. I didn't say anything. I felt cold all over. After a minute, Jacob asked, "Am I in trouble?" I shook my head, still holding him. "No," I said. "You're not in trouble." He sniffed, wiped his nose on my shirt. He looked at the door, then at me. "I don't want to go," he said. I told him not to worry about it right now. I kept my hand on his back, rubbing slow circles. We sat like that for a long time, both of us listening for footsteps that didn't come back. When he calmed down, he asked if we could play Mario Kart. I said yes. He wanted to be Luigi. I let him win. I kept glancing at my phone, waiting for a message from Mark, but nothing came. That afternoon, I called my lawyer. She picked up on the third ring. I told her what happened, the exact words. She listened, silent. Then she said, "You need to write down everything. Every visit, every conversation. Don't talk to Mark without me." I made notes in a spiral notebook, my handwriting shaky. I wrote down Amanda's words, Mark's voice, Jacob's face. I wrote the date and the time. That night, I watched Jacob sleep. He clung to his stuffed bear, mouth open, hair stuck to his forehead. I wondered if Amanda had practiced her speech in the mirror. I wondered if Mark believed any of it. I wondered what Jacob would remember about mornings like this. The house was quiet. I heard cars in the distance. I heard myself breathing. I thought about what it would take to keep him safe and what it would cost. I didn't cry. I watched the moonlight on the wall, waiting for morning. The house was quiet after 9. I sat at the dining table with my phone in my hand, the lights turned low. The kids were in their rooms, doors closed. I kept replaying Jacob's words from earlier in my head. I needed someone who wouldn't dismiss everything as a misunderstanding, so I texted MS. Chen and asked if she had a moment. She picked up almost immediately. I kept my voice low. I told her what Jacob said, how Amanda had approached him privately, how he seemed to know details I hadn't shared with anyone but Amanda. MS. Chen listened without interrupting. She said, "Keep every interaction documented. Don't confront them directly. Don't give them any emotional response they can use against you. Record where you can, even if it's just notes. Do not let them see you rattled. All right, I said. I'll start tonight. If anything escalates, call me first. Not them. After the call, I sat there for a minute, the edges of the table pressing into my palms. I opened my laptop and pulled up our shared family calendar. It was something we used for years: birthdays, school events, doctor appointments. I scrolled through the upcoming weeks. I noticed that under the main header, now labeled Reynolds Family, Amanda had added a series of events. Reynolds Family Planning Meeting, Reynolds Home Deep Clean, Reynolds Kids Weekend. I hadn't been consulted about any of it. Some had notes attached: Amanda to coordinate, Jacob to confirm. My name wasn't listed anywhere. The events had been created 3 days ago, around the time Amanda started acting colder at home. I took screenshots of every page, every timestamp. I saved them in a folder labeled Calendar Evidence. I noted the times Amanda logged in and what changes she made. Her email showed as the last editor. I double-checked my access. My permissions were read, only now. I tried to add an event. It wouldn't let me. I tried to delete one. A message popped up. You do not have permission to make this chain. My account had been downgraded at some point in the last week. Amanda hadn't mentioned it. No one had. I checked the chat history for our family group. Nothing. No explanation for the changes. I sat back and looked at the screen. It felt like I was being written out of my own life, one small click at a time. I opened my journal, the one I kept hidden behind the cookbooks. I wrote out every detail: Jacob's words, Amanda's new events, the permissions change. I wrote a list of everything that had shifted since Amanda moved back in. I didn't write about how it felt, just what happened. I thought about calling Jacob. Then I remembered MS. Chen's words. Don't let them see you rattled. I made a list of next steps. Tomorrow, I'd request a formal mediation through the family law portal. I'd send an email, not a text, so there would be a record. I'd mention the calendar and ask for shared decision-making, not unilateral changes. I closed my laptop and checked the front door. Locked. Amanda's key was still in the bowl by the stairs, but I knew she'd been out earlier. I listened for her in the hallway. Nothing. I went upstairs. The kids' doors were still closed. I could hear quiet music from my son's room. I knocked and asked if he wanted tea. He said he was fine. I went back to my bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed. I set alarms for tomorrow, one for the mediation request, one to check the calendar again, one to update MS. Chen. Then I turned off my phone, lay back, and stared at the ceiling. I listened to the silence and wondered how many more things would change before anyone noticed. The chairs in the mediation office were vinyl, stiff and close together. The carpet was gray. Mark sat across from me, his arms folded, eyes on the table. Amanda was next to him, a folder in her lap. MS. Chen, my lawyer, sat to my left. The mediator, a middle-aged woman with cropped hair, checked her notes. We'd been through the basics. Names, roles, the reason we were here. Amanda started first. She spoke politely, almost rehearsed about routines, bedtime, healthy snacks. She said she'd helped organize Jacob's school schedule since September. She looked at the mediator. She said she only wanted what was best for Jacob, that she had no intention of replacing anyone. Her voice got a little higher at the end. Mark didn't say much. He nodded when Amanda talked. He kept glancing at the clock on the wall, like he wanted to be somewhere else. MS. Chen opened her folder and slid a stack of papers across the table. She waited for the mediator to look up. These are emails from Jacob's teacher, she said. They were sent to MS. Alan, not MS. Thompson. The mediator glanced at Amanda. Amanda's jaw tightened. Next, MS. Chen handed over a printout of the school's contact form. She tapped the page. Amanda's handwriting, next to the mother-guardian line, was clear. Mark shifted in his seat. I didn't say anything. The pages made a soft sound as the mediator turned them. No one else moved. MS. Chen put her hand on the next pile. These are screenshots of the school calendar, she said. You'll see that MS. Alan's email was added as the primary notification address. MS. Thompson's was removed. Amanda leaned forward. I only did that because the school asked for a contact. I was trying to be helpful. She looked at the mediator, then at Mark. She said Mark was busy, and she just wanted to make sure nothing fell through the cracks. MS. Chen looked at the mediator. There was no request from the school for any changes. MS. Alan submitted this form without consulting our client. Mark cleared his throat. He said Amanda was just trying to help. He mumbled that it was probably a misunderstanding. The mediator set the papers aside. Her expression didn't change. She asked Amanda, "Are you aware you are not Jacob's legal guardian?" Amanda's face went red. She opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at Mark, then back at the mediator. I just thought, she started. The mediator cut her off. Did you inform the school that you were not legally authorized to make decisions regarding Jacob's care? Amanda shook her head, quick and small. The mediator wrote something down. She didn't look at anyone for a while. MS. Chen spoke again, quieter. There have been several instances of custody arrangements being ignored, she said. She pointed to the calendar. Jacob was with MS. Alan on days he was meant to be with his mother. Mark said that was a mix-up. He said it quietly, almost under his breath. The mediator looked at me. Is there anything you'd like to add? I said no. I think it's clear. Amanda kept her eyes on the table. Her hands were twisted together, knuckles white. Mark hunched over, staring at nothing. The mediator wrote a few more lines, then said she'd need to review everything before making a recommendation. She asked if there was anything else urgent. No one spoke. She said we'd get a summary of the meeting by email. She thanked us for being civil. She stood to leave. I stood up too. MS. Chen gathered the papers. Mark stayed sitting, rubbing his forehead. Amanda didn't look at anyone. The room emptied out in silence. The only sound was the soft click of the door as it closed behind us. The principal's office was colder than I remembered from parent-teacher nights. She sat behind her desk, a mug of tea untouched. I sat across from her, knees pressed together, hands folded in my lap, trying not to fidget. She had called me in after I sent the third email about the contact records. I didn't bother with small talk. She started first. I want to apologize, she said. There was a mix-up with our contact system. Your sister's information was added as guardian on record. That shouldn't have happened. My voice sounded flat in that room. Who requested the change? She looked at her screen, then at me. The request came through in person, she said. I think it was Amanda. I'm sorry, we should have verified with you. She paused, then went on. You're listed as primary, and I've already instructed the front office to update everything. Amanda is not to be listed as guardian. I'll email staff myself. I nodded, looking at the wall behind her. There was a framed watercolor of sunflowers. Outside, I could hear kids in the hallway, their voices sharp and quick. The principal shifted some papers, then asked if there was anything else she could do to reassure me. I want to see the log, I said. Any changes to my daughter's contact records? Date, time, who signed off. She hesitated, but then pulled up a file on her computer. She clicked print. The printer in the corner started up, spitting out 3 pages. She handed them to me, her fingers tapping nervously on her desk. I read through each entry. Most were routine address confirmations, a phone number changed last fall, an update to my work extension. Then, near the bottom of the last page, there was an entry from 2 weeks ago. Change of secondary contact, Amanda Jensen. Email, Amanda's personal address. Noted in the authorized by column was Amanda's signature, messy and unmistakable. I tapped the name with my fingernail. This was done in person. She nodded. Amanda came in. She said she needed to update the family emergency contact. Our receptionist was new. She didn't know the protocol. Did Amanda present any ID? She shook her head. Not that I can see. It should have been flagged for approval. I set the pages on my lap, face up. My hands didn't shake. I looked at the principal. I'd like a copy of these for my records. And I want written confirmation that Amanda is not authorized to make any changes. She said she would send both by the end of the day. She apologized again. I could see she meant it. The new office staff would be retrained. Only you, she said, will be allowed to update anything from now on. We'll flag your file. I thanked her. She stood up as I left, and I could tell she wanted to say more, maybe to explain how this could happen, but I didn't give her the chance. I left the office, the copy of the log papers pressed flat against my chest. I walked down the hallway past a line of kindergartners, their teacher reminding them to keep their hands to themselves. Outside, the air felt damp. I sat in my car with the engine off. I looked at Amanda's handwriting, the way she looped her A too wide, the slant of her J. I stared at it until the lines blurred. I folded the papers, put them in my glove compartment, and just sat there, letting the quiet settle. Then I started the car and drove home. MS. Chen called me at 8:30 in the morning. She never calls unless it's urgent. I was standing in my kitchen, making coffee. She said, I just forwarded you something you'll want to see. Mark's lawyer reached out. I had time to sit down before the emails came through. The first was short. Mark was withdrawing his petition for full custody. The lawyer's language was dry, but I knew what it meant. No more court, no more visits from social workers. Citing family instability in his current household, the email read, MS. Chen added a note, see the forwarded chain below. I scrolled down. There were emails between Mark and his lawyer, then one between Mark and Amanda. Mark's tone was clipped. He wrote, you've been talking to your ex about moving Jacob out of state. Without discussing it with me, Amanda's reply was long and scattered. She said she only wanted what was best for Jacob, that she didn't want to cause trouble, but she'd reached out to her ex-husband to explore options, just in case. She tried to soften it. It's not decided. I wanted to talk to you first. I'm sorry if you're upset. Mark's response was a single sentence. Don't contact me unless it's about Jacob. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Amanda. The subject line was blank. The body of the email said, I did what I thought was right for Jacob. I hope you're happy. I sat there and read it twice. The room was silent, except for the refrigerator humming. Amanda had always been careful about her image. She liked to play the mediator, the one who smoothed things over. Now she sounded tired. There was no accusation, not even anger. Just resignation. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. I imagined the scene at their house. Mark must have confronted Amanda the night before. I pictured her in the kitchen, hands folded on the counter, trying to explain. Mark pacing, his voice getting louder, then stopping suddenly. The realization that she had gone behind his back. The trust she'd worked so hard to build, gone in one message thread. I scrolled back up and looked at Mark's lawyer's words again. Family instability. It was Mark's own words, his own argument turned around on him. The phrase felt cold and clinical. It covered everything and nothing at the same time. I realized Amanda's alliance with Mark had fallen apart. She had been planning her own exit, reaching out to her ex without telling Mark, probably thinking she could control the fallout. Now it was out in the open. She had lost her footing. Mark had no one left to blame but himself. I closed my laptop and sat for a minute. It was quiet outside. I could hear a neighbor's dog bark in the distance. I waited for some kind of feeling to break through. Relief, satisfaction, maybe even guilt. But there was only a sense of finality. The game was over. Everyone had played their hand. I thought about Amanda's message. I hope you're happy. It didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like someone who had lost, but still needed to say something, even if it didn't matter. I turned off the coffee maker. The kitchen looked the same as it had every morning for the last year, but I knew something had shifted. Mark was alone now, and Amanda was on her own. The fight was finished, but the consequences would keep echoing. I didn't feel like a winner. I just felt done. The morning was quiet, except for the scrape of Jacob's fork against his plate. I let him pour syrup himself this time. He was still in his pajamas, his hair sticking up in the back. I stood by the stove, flipping the last pancake, watching him like I always did on weekends now. My phone buzzed on the counter. I checked the screen, Mark's name. I hadn't seen it in months. I let it ring twice before picking up. Jacob looked at me, mouth full, and I nodded for him to keep eating. Mark's voice was low. Hey. He paused. I was wondering if it's okay, could I see Jacob next weekend? If you're comfortable, I mean. I didn't answer right away. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. I looked at the apartment, the clean counters, Jacob's sneakers by the door, the drawings taped to the fridge. I didn't feel much of anything. My hand was steady. We'll talk, I said. Through the proper channels. He let out a breath. Okay. Thanks. I pressed end. Jacob was watching me now. I smiled a little, slid the last pancake onto his plate, and ruffled his hair. He grinned and went back to eating, humming to himself. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop and opened my email. MS. Chen had responded to my last message about the new custody agreement. I drafted a short note. Mark has reached out to request visitation. I confirm we will proceed according to the updated terms. Please advise on next steps. I attached the call log, just like she'd asked me to. I didn't reread it. I hit send and closed the laptop. Jacob finished his breakfast and asked if we could go to the park. I told him to get dressed and brush his teeth. He ran down the hall, leaving his sticky plate on the table. I didn't mind. I stacked the dishes in the sink, wiped the crumbs from the table, and let the morning light settle in the kitchen. The phone stayed quiet. I didn't expect Mark to call again. I knew he'd wait now, wait for official replies, for scheduled visits, for the boundaries I'd drawn. I thought about the months I spent jumping at every text, every missed call. That was over. The channels were in place. My voice didn't shake when I spoke to him. Jacob came back, tugging a sweatshirt over his head, shoes in hand. He asked if he could bring his soccer ball. I told him yes. He ran out ahead of me, down the stairs, into the street where the air was sharp and clear. I locked the door behind us, keys firm in my hand. The building was quiet. No leftover tension, no voices through the wall. Just the sound of Jacob's laughter as he tossed his ball in the air, waiting for me at the bottom step. We walked to the park. I let him run ahead, watched as he kicked the ball, called out for me to hurry up. My phone stayed in my pocket. I didn't think about Mark. I didn't have to. The day kept moving. The world kept going. I let it. The judge's pen hovered for a second and then came down, sharp and final. She slid the custody order toward her clerk without meeting my eyes. I nodded, once not saying anything. My lawyer squeezed my arm and whispered, "That's it." I didn't answer. I just watched Amanda across the room, her face blank, mouth set, hands still folded in her lap. Mark kept his eyes on the floor. Nobody moved right away. Outside the courtroom, the hallway felt too bright. I waited for the clerk to hand me the certified copy. There was a thin blue stamp at the bottom, my name above Amanda's, and the words sole physical and legal custody clear as day. My lawyer went over the next steps. Give copies to Jacob's school, his pediatrician, update the aftercare pickup list, email the soccer coach. Amanda is not permitted to pick up Jacob, not allowed to represent herself as his guardian. If she tries, call this number. She handed me a list. On the drive home, I didn't turn on the radio. I called the school office and asked for the counselor. She remembered my voice. I emailed the order before she finished her sentence. I heard her typing. Mark texted that night. I moved out. I'll be in touch about weekends. I sent back, let me know what Jacob needs. That was it. No apologies, no explanations. I put the folder of emails, texts, and printouts in the bottom drawer of my desk. I pushed it shut. Jacob's new schedule was taped to the fridge in block letters. No more confusion, no missed pickups, no last-minute calls. I didn't feel happy. I just felt done. The house was quiet. I made Jacob's lunch for the next day, packed his backpack, and set out his shoes. 3 months on, school emails come straight to me. Jacob's teacher doesn't copy Mark anymore. I get a reminder about the spring showcase. I reply, simple and brief, and let Mark know the date. He says he'll be there. That's all. The auditorium smells like paint and crayons. Kids run around in too big costumes. I find a seat near the aisle. Mark comes in just before it starts, sits 3 chairs away, not beside me. He nods, not smiling, and keeps his hands folded in his lap. No Amanda. I don't ask. No one mentions her. It's quieter than I expected. Jacob's class goes up first. He spots us both, waves with both hands. I wave back. Mark tries a smile. I notice he's wearing a suit jacket with jeans. He looks like he hasn't slept much. When the show ends, the kids all run to their parents. Jacob squeezes between us, holding a construction paper program, and asks if we liked his singing. Mark says, "You were great, buddy." I tell him I like the drawing on the cover best. Jacob grins, fidgets, and hands each of us a picture. Mine is a house with a garden. Mark's is a rocket ship in space. We walk out together, but not close. Jacob holds my hand and tugs at Mark's sleeve. No one says anything about home, or dinner, or the past. Outside, Mark says he'll see Jacob Sunday. I nod. There's no argument, no apology, only a schedule. Mark stands alone by his car for a minute, looking at something on his phone. Then he leaves. The air is still. It smells like cut grass and spring. Jacob hops along the sidewalk, humming, not looking back. I lock the car and watch him climb into his seat. It feels finished. I drive us home. If your ex's new partner started trying to erase you from your own child's life, how far would you go to stop it? Some people tell me I should have fought harder or louder. Others say I acted out of spite. I don't know if it's possible to get it exactly right when you're put in that position. Sometimes silence feels like the only weapon left, especially when every word you say gets twisted or used against you. I tried to protect my daughter without turning her life into a war zone. Maybe I was too cold. Maybe I should have blown everything up sooner. Maybe I waited too long. I'm still not sure. Let me know if you would have handled it differently, or if you think I crossed a line. Was walking away the right move, or just another way to lose? I read every story and comment. If you want to hear more confessions like this, subscribing and liking helps keep these stories going. Share this with someone if you think it could help them see they're not alone. Where would you draw the line if someone tried to take your place?